all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me.
It's really, really interesting. There we go. Now I know why I can't hear myself. Hi, everyone. It's Don. Yeah, I'm not used to Brent's setup, so pardon me if I have to work through a couple things here. But how are you? It's nice to see everybody. It's kind of weird having the camera up there as well. Wow. Happy Friday. It's nice to be here. The paranormal detector has already picked up things, so we've got some action going here. It's kind of exciting already. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting way to do things. So, hey, how are you? Let's see here. Why is my chat not wanting to connect? I don't know. All right. Well, anyhow, happy Friday. Today is what, the 21st? That's awesome. And wow, I got a bit of the nerves, so forgive me if you will, please. Wow. Not used to this. Well, give a shout out in the chat rooms, and we'll see what we can do there. How's that working over there? Okay. Well, anyhow, I suppose I should probably announce this real quick. I am not here by myself tonight. I was able to wrangle a co-conspirator to this mutiny, and I want to just let you all know that I have Miss Paisley Wild here. Let me get that up there. And there. Hi, Paisley. How are you?
I am good. Hi, all.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wow. Okay, so let me do a couple things here because I'm not seeing things correctly. So just as a shout out, is anybody in TFR hearing me? Because this is my first time running things here. Oh, look, there's the chat. Why is it not showing here? Oh, yeah, there's Gemini, Black Tree, Deb. Nice to see you. Oh, Polynesian. Thank you. Excellent, excellent. So everybody can hear. Excellent. Thank you, Lucky. I appreciate that. So flying solo is kind of different than anything else. It's definitely an interesting way to do things. But anyhow. Yeah, Brent wasn't able to come out and join us tonight. He had things he had to go do, and we'll take care of. Oh, haha, yeah, there you go.
There. Can you hear me now?
I don't know. Speak in your microphone.
I am speaking into my microphone. It's not my fault you got this big voice.
Yeah, I do. Let me do this. Talk again.
Talk, talk, talk. 1, 2, 3.
She's using my mic, so of course it's going to be interesting night.
I should have brought my own gear, doggone it.
I can barely hear you. You know what? Go ahead and unplug the bottom of the mic.
Get plugged in.
Yeah,
Right here?
yes. Hold on. And voila. Come on. There we go.
It's not the Paranormal Portal if there isn't at least
There we
one
are.
issue.
Hi, there you
There
are.
I
Hi,
am.
how are you, Paisley?
Yay!
How are you?
Yes, I would not be totally surprised if he didn't have me muted, to be honest.
No,
Mhm.
it's not
Yeah.
muted.
Yep.
No, I wouldn't mute you.
Yes, you would.
No, you wouldn't. Anyhow, so excellent. Do you have the chat room pulled up there on YouTube?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. Because I, for some reason, can't get it working over here.
Alrighty.
That's pretty weird.
Well, there's a bunch of people in here. I
Yeah.
see
Well, hit the 3 buttons.
3 buttons. Which 3 buttons?
No. Go up. Scroll the chat up. Those 3 buttons.
These 3 buttons.
There you go. Hit participants.
Hey, look at that.
There you go.
Holy cow, bunches.
Oh, excellent.
So, Aussie Tiger, Black Tree, hi, Julia, Bum Fluff Paranormal. That's one I don't recognize. Kate Shipley, Chris Guy, Deb Varner, hi Deb, Gemini Moon, hi Gemini, Many Musings, hello, hello. Paranormal Portal, but that's not really Brent, that's Dawn. Renee Harvey, Rivers, Suzanne Page, and me. It looks like that's all I can see.
Well, then that's all there is.
right.
Well, that's not necessarily true, but that's all that shows you. And a quick shout out for TFR. I am in there as Brent because we're using his account. So we've Shanghai'd the whole thing. We got Lucky there. TFR Wookie 3 Finker. I got Mike Horkchutz. I hope I said that right. Polynation. Trudy Glenn. Deep Root. Daryl Bowles. TC Hawk. Don's 2U2. Psycho Dave 321, Outgoing Soul, and Drone. Hey Drone, how are you? So there you are. There's our shout outs for the night because I'm going to forget to do it. But anyhow, so Paisley, how's your Friday?
It's going good. Happy
Yeah?
Letha.
Oh,
Hi.
yeah.
Summer solstice and Yule, everybody. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, happy Letha. And if you're in the southern, happy Yule. I hope you guys all have or are having awesome celebrations. Whether it's jumping around that fire or
Jumping around the fire.
or drinking your eggnog.
You drink eggnog during Letha?
Yule. Hello.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Christmas season.
Well, see, I don't
eggnog.
know. See, that's-
I will convert you to the dark side.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, wow, cool. Excellent. Tell us, you know what? Tell us about your show because our YouTube audience doesn't know you very well, and some people in TFR know you.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk about your show for just a second.
So my show, I am a slowly coming out of the closet pagan, and practicing kitchen witch, and so I've been unconsciously practicing for about 30 years and slowly becoming more aware of my path as I've gotten a little bit more mature and older, and really started devoting myself to walking the pagan path as an eclectic here about 18 months ago, and had a chance encounter with someone about this time last year and really started walking out of the closet more and flashing that broomstick around. That sounded bad. Shush.
It's
Shush.
a perfectly paranormal thing to say.
Absolutely. And then I ended up, I was sick one night listening to Brent and Don talk, and I know Chris Gio outside of TFR. And, of course, don't ever talk to a radio show owner or program owner when you're high on NyQuil, because things happen that you are suddenly committed to, and here I am, with my path out there loud and proud. So yeah.
Well, that's good though, because and Chris is one to jump right on things if he
Yes.
finds interest in them. Yeah,
Absolutely. I, in a haze or stupor, I messaged Chris. I'm like, hey, I've got an idea for a show. And he says, yes. That sounds interesting. And then like 20 minutes later, he sends me a message. He goes, hey, what do you think of this for bumper music? It's like, you have bumper music already? When do I start? What's going on? What did I commit to? So what time am I on? I had no idea. And so that first show was just, wow.
Did you speed read through all
well, I
your...
speed read through everything. And you've given me grief already for,
That's
my
true.
notes, because
That's true.
I tend to talk very fast in general, and I read very, very fast. So one of those things leads to another, and hi, Rivers. And suddenly I was all the way out of 9 pages of material, like single space, small font, in 40 minutes. And so I had to spend like 10 minutes of just trying to figure out what to say next, because the first 10 minutes of the show were completely flubs with total technical malfunctions and operator error. It was awesome.
Well, it is what it is. When I did my first 2-hour show on TFR with when Brent was sick one night. He had some bad chicken sandwich or something from Burger King. And he was just sicker than a dog. Poor guy. But when I did my first show without him, this is actually only my second show without him, so it's kind of weird. It's weird sitting in the captain's chair, that's for sure. But I talked. It was actually a pretty well done show, I think. I had a specific thing I wanted to do, and I did it, doggone it. And Brent says though that when he, his first couple shows, he was just like boom, right through it, and he was done. He had a 2-hour show, and he was done within like 45 minutes. So it's just crazy. But our friend Lucky over in TFR is giving out love to you. Mm-hmm. She said your first show was great, so don't worry about that. Interesting. But anyhow, hey, it's kind of an awesome thing. So I really don't have anything to talk about tonight. Well, I do. I have all kinds of things to talk about. But let me see here. I kind of wanted to go into a little bit about Mr. Phil Schneider. Now, I have to admit I don't know too much about him necessarily. I do know what I've seen on YouTube and things like that. But I've always been interested in like things like DUMBs, deep underground military bases. And he was really the first one to really start talking about this kind of thing. He did quite a few speaking engagements and all kinds of things. Gemini. Don, you have all kinds of things to talk about. Yes,
yes.
I do. He was an engineer. He was military contracted civilian. He had pretty high clearance and stuff, and he did a lot of drilling and what does he do? He was a geologist. That's what he was. But he also knew metallurgy and things like that. So they would send him to go get samples, and he would also be the one blowing out the holes with. He would suggest what kind of explosives to use and things like that.
The ones that go boom?
The ones that go boom, yeah. And he talked about how they used to drill down into the ground and straight down. He's like a mile, he drills 4 holes, and then he goes down the holes, and they blast out that area underneath them and bring them all into one spot. It's an interesting thing. And, he's got an interesting story. Unfortunately, I think a lot of what he talks about, though, is more controversial stuff. Let's just say that, regarding politics and things like that, because he talks a lot about black budget and things like that. And, that connects in. You have to talk about that when you're talking about these secret programs, because, you got to question where that money comes from. But I don't want to get on that. What I want to get on is that one time, and this is down in Dulce, at the Dulce base in New Mexico. This is back in, I think it was like 85, 86. I was still in high school at the time. Cool. See how old I am. I think that's when it was. But they said that they cleared a hole, and they sent him down in a basket to go, get samples, rock samples and things like that. And he came back up, or he went down, and he said when he went down, he encountered what he described as tall grays. He said there was basically a whole society down there of them, lots and lots of them. And he said he was so scared, the first thing he did was he went for his pistol. He was only carrying I think it was a 9mm Walther PPK, and of course I know that. But he said he was able to shoot 2 of them. He did say he killed them flat out, but so killed him flat out. And then there was a firefight. He said that one of the alien creatures took his hand and put it over his chest, and he said there's some kind of a box, some kind of a controller or something, and it shot out a blue electrical Who's uh, Bigfoot in Germany? That's Paisley Wild from The Spaces Between. She's on. As a matter of fact, we've got to do your show after this, don't we? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So
That's why I've been drinking coffee all day.
excellent.
Zing.
But he said it shot out a blue electrical shock and it hit him in the chest. He said it separated ribs and really messed him up pretty good.
That would
And
hurt.
also, I think he on his left hand he was missing like his like the first two fingers and then like half of his ring finger on his left hand. I think there was something wrong with his feet too because he said when he got hit with that blue light, that blue energy, it felt like it went right down through his feet, and because he was grounded at the time, he was grounding it out, so it traveled through him and it burnt off, his fingers and really caused havoc with his in his chest area, his ribs, things like that. So yeah, really interesting things that he talked about. Now, what this really opens up is it really opens up the question and the ideas that there are deep underground military bases. Well, we already know there's underground military bases because NORAD, before they shut that down, and right now it's just it's a base in hibernation basically, and so there's what NORAD, supposedly Denver Airport, so there's a lot of ones there's a few that we know about. Let me say that. But he said that at the time, there was 129 deep underground bases, both used. I think he said something like 62 of them were dedicated to an alien species. Actually, he said not an alien species. He said alien species in general, and he said they were all kinds. He said there was the tall grays. He said there were reptilian. He said there was, I believe he said there was mantis, insectoid mantis type too. So really, that's kind of wow. And that's the three he talked about, but I'm sure he said something more about, other kinds of races that were out there. And hey, keep an eye out. Brett might join us in YouTube chat here in a while.
Okay.
So he reported three that he reported two that he saw, and a third he speculated. There's probably more out there that he didn't talk about. But those were the three that brought up the whole idea of deep underground bases regarding aliens. And he talked he talked a lot. He talked a lot about it. And he said that these aliens have been here before the human race, the modern man, that is. So it's really, really old. They're old. Some of these are old spots, He brought up, the idea of, what they're doing here. He really didn't go into specifics, but it really brings up the idea of, are we in fact alien seeded? He brought up the idea that, the government's been working with them since time immemorial, different kinds of governments through history, ancient governments, things like that. And specifically he talked a lot about America and how America is funding and possibly in the know about alien abduction. Now, I've talked about that before. I've talked about alien abductions in the Greada Treaty. He does bring up the Greada Treaty, and that's the Eisenhower years, 1953, 1954, when Eisenhower supposedly met with a couple different races. One of them was supposedly the Venusians, the tall Nordics. That would be Val Thor, his wife Jane, and his brother Don. Val Thor's brother's name was Don. That's awesome.
So you're an alien?
Well, what's funny is there's a show called People of Earth, and it's about aliens coming to Earth and experimenting on people, and the tall Nordic. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but the tall Nordic one went by the name Dawn as well. So I don't know if they, borrowed that from the Greada Treaty, the Eisenhower Accords kind of thing. So it was interesting, but it really makes you wonder, how long we've been here, how long they've been here, all kinds of things. What if Black Tree in YouTube says, "What if aliens are just our future selves?" Now, actually, if you scour through YouTube, you will find a YouTube video supposedly of an alien being interrogated, and it's kind of hard to understand unless you can click into the way he talks and things like that and figure out what he's saying. And basically what he's saying is he came back from the future to warn us about the possible nuclear holocaust we're going to cause to each other. And so he says, "I am you." He says, "I am your future self." So it is definitely an interesting question. I would ask you, Paisley, what your thoughts were on that, but we've only got a couple minutes already before we go
Holy
to break.
cow. How does time fly so fast?
Well, and that's why we do a 2-hour show, and that's why I keep asking you when you're going to start your show, because we're done with it before. That's awesome. But so those are kind of the thoughts and some of the ideas. So it's really kind of concerning, actually. Because it's one of those things that, I'm the skeptic on the show, and let me say, skeptical believer. I really like that term much, much better, because you show me proof and I'll believe it, or you give me enough proof that makes it make sense to me, then I'll believe it. But but I do think that there's something out there, and I do think that they've visited us, whether it be in this present time or certainly before. So interesting thoughts, and you really got to wonder why we have to pay like $15,000 for apparently a gold-plated hammer and gold toilet seats. So interesting things.
Well, everything does cost more than you anticipate it when you're constructing anything.
Well, yeah, but a hammer for $15,000, even if it was only $1,500.
Maybe it levitates. Who knows?
Maybe it levitates.
So there are quite a few theories that have been posited about our future selves coming back as aliens. They look like aliens because we've evolved or changed, because the world has changed and we've changed with it. So that's actually a very common theme in the science fiction world, which I love. But it's amazing. You bring me on the show, I'm a pagan, and we're talking about aliens. It's great. But no, way outside of my wheelhouse. But there's actually, even with the different deities and pantheons, there is some thought that they were actually aliens instead of actual gods or goddesses. Even in the India traditions, there's a lot of potential proof, or evidence at least, that maybe some of the gods or deities that they worship are actually aliens or came from a different planet and not actually gods. They just seem godlike because their technology was so far advanced compared to the people that they first encountered. Yeah. And to be honest, what is magic? Magic has been explained or defined often as technology that is just so far advanced that it doesn't make sense to you. And so even though it seems like magic, maybe it really, really isn't. Maybe it is just advanced technology.
Advanced technology, nice, yeah.
So
interesting. Those are definitely, good questions and good thoughts, because you really have to wonder. We've seen through our histories and things like that. The Anunnaki, they talk about the ancient aliens, they talk about Anunnaki, as I just said. And also other cultures, even the First Nations cultures of America talk about, these experiences that they had with, what I'm going to call aliens at this time. And they have oral traditions that they pass down, and you talked about, the East Indian, cultures and things like that, having these, everybody can hear you, dear.
Yes, I know. So I have a mini Paisley.
Oh boy.
Yes, it-
Yeah, we know. She's a cutie too.
Mhm.
But so it's all kinds of traditions and cultures across the world that talk about being visited and being contacted. A lot of the Aboriginal, Indigenous, New Zealanders and things like that, or not New Zealanders, I apologize, Australians. They talk about sky people all the time in their oral traditions as well. So, it makes sense that there's that kind of a connection with all other kinds of cultures and things like that through the ages. So interesting stuff. We do have the call board open. If you do want to call in, our phone number is 720-923-0500. We can take calls tonight. However, I'm having an issue watching the call board because I'm interested in watching everything else. So there you go. We're going to go to break here real quick, and then we'll be back with me and Miss Paisley.
See you
So
guys.
hang on. We'll see you in a bit. Oh, you gotta just love that.
I can't hear anything either most of the time.
Well, the TFR feed's not done yet.
Well, they can't hear anything.
Well, they can now. Actually,
Yep.
they can.
Yep.
Anyhow, so hot micing it because I'm not used to the setup, so I've got to get used to Mr. Brent's setup. But here we are back, and yeah, Don, yeah, fell asleep. Sure. Anyhow, so well now Paisley, what are your thoughts? Do you have more thoughts on what we were just talking about, or what I was just talking about?
Yeah, you like talked for half an hour. I thought you said you didn't have anything to say.
Yeah. Well.
Well, it's very, very conceivable, absolutely, that the deities that everybody follows are aliens or have come from elsewhere. I mean, it's they could have been super beings or people from previous history or timeline. Because I, for one, feel that time is a circle. What has been will come again, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if our future selves do come back in some way, shape, or form, or maybe they are just aliens completely that it came here and influenced prehistoric cultures or pre-current time cultures, because in many of the different regions of the world where there's pictographs or of any kind, there is some sort of etching or engraving or painting showing some sort of aircraft or modern day looking structure or vehicle that they in theory couldn't have even seen or imagined, back when cavemen were supposedly still fighting off the dinosaurs. So I don't know. I think there's enough evidence out there that something or someone came here in prehistory, and not just people dreaming things up. Because how can thousands of people from across the world all have the same dream?
Well, that's like a lot of people say. The Bible is just a work of fiction. So, if you think about that, if you consider it that way, if the Bible's a work of fiction, then and hundreds and millions of people talk about God as very that there is a God, there's all-seeing God out there. So I mean, if you've got it ingrained into your culture, then you're definitely gonna there's definite possibilities regarding that. So yeah. Uh-oh.
Yep. Sorry, I am watching the chat and interacting on chat.
Yes, I see that. Thank you.
So it's hard to say, and I think there is a lot more evidence out there that would explain the past better. That is not acceptable by current anthropologists, archaeologists, scientists, politicians, etc. So. If they don't want to accept it, they're not going to tell anybody about it. There's, I was watching a video here the other day about Egypt and how there is evidence of cultures pre what is written, and even that the pyramids themselves were created long before the Egyptians ever came to power, and or even the Egyptians descended from those that built the pyramids, and the pyramids were actually energy or gatherers of some sort, and but the evidence of that has actually been buried by the Bureau of Antiquities there in Egypt, or just the different archaeologists, because it didn't fit their preferred
narrative.
theme.
Yeah, their narrative.
Just like there's in dating things and radiocarbon and just research, there's evidence that even a potential a nuclear power plant of some sort has exploded and just decimated an area millions of years ago, because that's the level of radioactivity in that vicinity. So things like that just don't happen. And you guys have talked about having the artifacts that
Out of place
the out of place
artifacts.
artifacts.
Yeah.
Those had to come from somewhere. So they don't just magically appear unless there's someone out there just with a devilish sense of humor sprinkling random artifacts throughout the time layers, which could be. That would be kind of amusing, actually. So, just. I don't know. I think there's got to be something to it. I
Right.
think whether it was ourselves going back in time from the future, or or something else. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, yeah, and we do talk about out of place artifacts an awful lot, and we've talked about. I've talked about. I think it's in Africa. There was the natural, supposedly a natural fusion plant somehow burning up uranium and causing all kinds of havoc. And I've talked about how the Sphinx and the Giza Plateau pyramids are older. Because if you look at the erosion and the water damage, that erosion and the water damage on the Sphinx specifically is got to be more than 15,000 years old. Because it takes a long time to create those kind of fissures and washout spots. So it's I'm convinced that they're a lot older than human civilization as well. And there's a whole lot of people that believe that. There's a whole lot of people in the chat that are saying that they believe that advanced civilizations were here prehistory. Not just prehistory, but I think pretty much all through the Earth, after the Earth's cooling period. Civilization resets as well. Yeah, Randall. Because the question is if the dinosaurs were seeded and brought and engineered by an advanced civilization or an advanced intelligence, and they got wiped out because they weren't working out, that's not what we want. We'll just do something else. It brings up a whole lot of questions about where did we come from, and alien DNA modifications and things like that, and different things pulled from the face of the earth, and added this and that. Are we GMO by any chance? Have you ever thought about that?
I'm
That's
sure
an
we
interesting
are.
thought.
Yes. We are GMO. Don't eat us.
Oh my gosh, we're no good for you.
Long pork is bad.
Long pork is bad. Talked about that too. Those things are a lot more ancient than 3,000 years old. 2,500, 3,000 years old, and it's just it's astounding to think that things can be that old. Because we're only told that it's only 3,000, 4,000 years old at most, but the Earth has been here for billions and billions of years. I think it was like 24.6 billion.
I am not the numbers person here.
Oh, so yeah, interesting. But let me get back to Phil Schneider real quick though, because he, as I said, he talked about there being 129 deep underground bases. He said 62 were used by some kind of alien intelligence, and the rest are military and possibly military and alien bases, so they could have either one in them. And one of the talks that I watched on YouTube from him says that there are 11 of these deep underground bases in Idaho, where we are. 11.
That actually wouldn't surprise me. For the most part, especially up here in the north, we're very stable. We've had a few smaller earthquakes, but not that big a deal.
Right.
Because we do have some really deep underground mines. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that there are some sort of caverns or cave systems underground. And then the very first nuclear research facility is actually in southern Idaho. And that's where they've first started developing the whole nuclear
You're talking
energy
about
project.
INL. You're talking about INL.
And then there's Craters of the Moon Park. There's the River of No Return Wilderness area. We've got a lot of acres. I mean, square miles of uninhabited land. So it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that there is some sort of underground facility throughout the state. even they've done studies, and there's been research, and people have just discovered tunnels throughout the world. And there's some thought or some theories that those are all connected. So even they go under the ocean and under the lakes and rivers and everything. So even though they may be 11 different bases, they're still interconnected possibly by these tunnels and whatnot. So to have a whole subsurface community of some sort would not surprise me in the slightest. I mean, there's a lot going on, I think, that the average person doesn't know about and doesn't even want about. I think people in general are sheep and will just listen to whatever they are told, especially if someone famous is saying it, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, to think that it's folks under there, yeah, I think it's very, very possible.
Well, and it really brings up the argument that for Hollow Earth. It brings up the whole Hollow Earth idea, and there's you talked about the tubes and things like that, lava tubes and natural occurring things. So it's really reasonable to believe. I mean, I can believe Hollow Earth theory very easily. It's just really it's just that way. Because we've got too much evidence of other things going on below, like the ocean beds and things like that. As a matter of fact, Brooks Agnew talked about they picked up what sounds like waves from an opposite point in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, something that sounds like waves crashing on rocks or whatnot on a shore. We've also talked about. He also mentioned there was like within 1 year there was like 15,000 different species of stingray found in the oceans that nobody knows where they came from. So it really brings up the idea that maybe they're not actually extraterrestrial aliens, but maybe interterrestrial aliens, from Hollow Earth. What did he also mention? Hollow Earth theory, if you follow a Hollow Earth theory, there's many different civilizations that live in the Hollow Earth. And I do believe he mentioned that the mantis were from there. So the mantis or the insectoid type, quote unquote, aliens. Hey, hold on a second. Let me see here, because this looks like Mr. Brent calling in. Is this Brent? Uh-oh.
You gotta turn the volume up.
I am having a problem with the board, Brent.
Brent, did you leave pictures to show Don what to do? Because I think he needs a bigger diagram.
I don't remember which.
I don't know. Are you turning things on and off?
No,
Are you gonna
I'm
mute
trying
me
not
now?
to. No, I'm not going to mute you. I should. Brent does it to me often enough. You know what? I don't know why I can't get Brent on here today. That's just
I think
really...
he's trying to. Is he actually connected? Because there's no.
Hold on.
Look.
Yeah, he's connected.
Well, the duration still says 0.
Huh, interesting. Brent, call me back on my cell real quick, because I don't know what's going on here. So anyhow, wow. Yeah, I'm not used to his board. I don't really know how he's got it set up. So interesting things there. Hey. But yeah, interesting. But Hollow. There he is. Hold on just a sec.
Of course. Brent did not
Hey,
sabotage
bud. For some
the
reason,
show.
I can't.
He's just trying to help.
For some reason, I can't
human
figure
beings
out what
in Don's basement. Toot toot.
what's going on.
Black tree.
Which
While he's getting tech support from the boss, and Juliet,
No, I've got it most of the way up.
he's figuring it out.
But I'm not hearing the TFR music
Yeah.
either.
He'll figure it out, and then you can call in their black tree. So, yeah, we're gonna go a side trip here. I don't know that much about aliens.
Yes.
But I think we're pretty pretty egotistical, I guess, to think that we're the only ones out there.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, of all the millions and millions and millions and millions of stars out there, we're the only ones to develop some sort of intelligence. I think that would just be silly and egotistical. Hi Ken. Yes, this is Paisley Wild. And now, granted, we could all just be hiding in a shoebox underneath someone's bed with a bunch of air holes, and that's what we're seeing stars. But who knows? Yes, we could be aliens, many musings. And no, I don't think we're alone. I think they are out there. I know that Bigfoot, there's some thoughts that, Bigfoot and other cryptids are actually going through some sort of portal from a different world, I guess, and step through and suddenly show up in here, and then they're like, oh gosh, we took a wrong turn at Albuquerque bugs, and they're going back to where they need to be. So I don't know. I think they're here. I think they're among us. Do they look like us? Quite possibly. Actually, if you've ever seen people of Walmart, they are here. Absolutely. And they're hiding just like us. And I think there are other creatures out there that could possibly be coming through whatever portals or splits in the space-time continuum. That kind of thing. And everything from, dinosaurs to Bigfoot to other beings. I think they're very possibly coming through some sort of portal. So, yes, Walmart peeps. So,
Walmart peeps?
You totally missed it because I went on my own merry way while you're trying to get help from the boss.
Absolutely. Keep going.
Sure. You got it figured out? Is he going to call back?
No. I don't know why it's not. The line's unmuted. It's all turned up. I don't know why we're having that little issue.
Did you connect in the little black box when he called?
Yes.
In the black box?
This is all. Never mind. We'll talk about that later. Now we're talking about technical issues. It's par for the course for the Paranormal Portal, though.
Yes, all we need is a ghost to come by and say hello.
And let's see. Yeah, somebody said France earlier, just before we started the show. One detected spirit within 25 yards.
So they're driving my car?
Maybe.
And
they
can keep it. I want a new one.
There was one that stood here for like 45 seconds. So, typical night. I wonder if it's because of you. Because Brent was telling me the other day that he hasn't had any real activity lately. So, and I usually
free your mind, Dawn.
I think it's her because it's usually me. It's obviously it's because of that body wash I use, the sage and black pepper.
Yeah, you're just well marinated.
Yes.
You're calling them in. All we need to get you is a ghost call.
Yeah, I was like, that'll be fun. Yeah. Oh, that might be a new thing for the Paranormal Portal ghost call.
There you go. Just go ooh.
We'll put it right next to the ghost poop.
Yeah, right next to the ghost poop. Hey, look, your call board's alive.
Yeah, let's try this here. Caller, you're on the air, maybe.
Actually, I bet you the caller is on the air, and we just can't hear.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
That's weird.
See, because that's all I need to do right there is just do that.
You're sure?
Yes. Oh. See, I can hear her, and I even know it's Julia.
Hi, Julia.
I don't know why we can just barely make it out. Sorry, Julia.
I can't hear anything. Don's too loud.
Yeah, that's a fact. Okay. Don Longbeard always has issues. Julia, I'm sorry. I can just hear you. That's all I know. I don't know what you're saying. The whole darn thing is just doggone. Call during Paisley show later tonight, though, and then we'll talk then. But unfortunately, I'm going to hang up on you. Love you.
Lewis, he's been touching all the buttons on the mixer, and apparently he's not touching the right combination.
Well, see, I can run mine. Mine in my studio, I know how to run. I don't know how he's got his set up. I don't pay attention to Brent when he's piloting. I know
So the secret's out. You ignore Brent.
I ignore what Brent's doing over here. I listen to what he's saying though. Most of the time, I've been caught out a time or two.
Yeah.
I admit it. So anyhow,
The black button. Yes, exactly.
what's up
Bigfoot.
with what? The
Bigfoot
little
in
black
Germany
button.
said you forgot to press the black button.
No,
Yep.
no, I
Yeah.
didn't forget anything. I don't know. Oh well, yeah, auxiliaries all plugged in. I don't know why. Anyhow, but guys, we can hear the caller. Oh,
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's us.
Lucky, we use a different call board in the portal. That's why we have a different phone number. We don't use the typical TFR phone number. So, but she says she can hear.
That
They
does.
can hear them. So, I don't know.
Orange County girl beat the board like an ape. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, I was talking about Hollow Earth and things like that, and we touched real quick on the 11 bases that are supposed to be in Idaho, and he also goes into, well, actually, I looked it up, and it wasn't him. Let me get back to here. They talk about deep underground bases in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They talk about what is this, Gallatin, Tennessee. Millington, Tennessee. There's a lot. There's a lot. There was a couple in Georgia. Why didn't I see those? Oh, and they've been. Was this how long? Yeah, this is 2016. So there was also a query put out back in like 2016. There was a bunch of wildfires through that area, and the thought was, was that purposely, were those purposely set to flush out these underground bases to see if it would affect them in some way? Possible theories. I don't know. I don't want to go into it. It's way too long. But yeah, it's just amazing if you look up deep underground bases on doggone it. I'll just Google it, and you'll come up with quite a few. And a lot of them reference a lot of what Phil Schneider said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 in Arizona. Let's see here. Arkansas has got 2 that's listed here. This is an old one, though, so there's actually probably more. There's... Oh my! Well, California's got quite a few.
California is an alien base.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my biases showing. Sorry to anybody who might be listening to California, but y'all are nuts down there.
Not the ones who listen to us.
No, you're normal.
Paranormal. Let's see. So there's in California 29 Palms, China Lake, Darwin, Deep Springs, Fort Irwin, Edwards Air Force Base. Go figure that one. That's also the one that's connected with Eisenhower back in 1953-54. Hellendale, under the Lockheed Underground Facility. Los Angeles, of course. Mount Shasta. Wow. And that list just keeps going and going. Colorado, Boulder, Colorado Springs, of course, Denver. Connecticut has one, supposedly. Florida has 2, couple in Georgia, Idaho. Here we go. So this one lists the ones in Idaho. It only lists 2. The preamp knob. Hold on. Oh, I can't even read it.
Don's blind. You want some light? If you guys didn't do your show in the dark,
I know, huh?
I know it's the Paranormal Portal and all things strange and weird in the dark and all that, but maybe you need to shine some light on the subject. Yeah, there probably is some, Pam.
Somewhat.
Underground bases in Washington State.
Oh yeah.
There's I think anywhere with mountains is just easy for an underground base to be, because you don't just have to dig straight down. You can dig sideways into the mountain. Oh. So.
Right off the top, it says there's one in Bothell, which
Yay,
does not
Bothell.
surprise me at all.
Nope.
So, weirdness.
Let's see. Canyon Park. And Brent, you do not work better in the dark. You should open your eyes and see the reality.
Brent's chiming in on the texting.
So it looks like Bothell. So Region X's priority staff is in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. All right, interesting article. It says there's one underneath the White House.
Well, of course.
Shocker.
Was there only one listed for underneath Washington?
Unless they're the big letters here that aren't. Yeah, it looks like Bothell, Nike Hill, in Bothell's Canyon Park. So, yeah, I don't know. Don't tell everybody.
Don't tell everybody. Oh, where they are?
Yeah.
Well, this is just, it's not necessarily. Oh, it's break time. We'll be back.
Everybody likes to play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart.
Well, there we go.
Hello.
I do not know what's going on here. So it's another night in the portal. Goodness. I hear a lot of noise. But anyhow, hi. Welcome back. And here we are. So we were talking about underground bases, and
Yep.
it really baffles me that there was only one listed in Washington. I would have expected more than that. Okay, so yeah. Brent says he could barely hear it, so muted, but that's why you can't hear the kicker. Okay, well, I'm barely hearing the music, Brent, so that's why I almost got kicked off there. But anyhow, to go on with the show, and I'll connect with Brent tomorrow about
Yes.
Dawn's cursed.
Dawn is cursed. Yes.
That's for sure.
It's a broken portal.
So, well, it's always an interesting night in the portal. You know that. You've
Yep.
listened.
It's an adventure.
So, so yeah, it's the I would have expected more in Washington, believe it or not, because of, especially over on the peninsula, more in Oregon. I didn't see any in Oregon either. So weirdness. But that's what that is. That's that eye patch thing I have on.
Yeah, ARG.
Arg, the eye patch. Anyhow, so did you have something you wanted to talk about, Paisley?
No, this is your show, man. You're the captain of the
Oh, boy.
USS pirate ship here.
It's going down in flames too.
I have my own show. I don't want to lose my material on.
Oh, fine. I thought you said you had something you wanted to talk about.
Well, I have things I could talk about. I
Well,
suppose.
you know what I do is I just go through my Facebook and my saved feeds and things like that and start reading things out of there.
You're funny. Well, I did have one thing I wanted to talk about that I thought would be interesting. Hold on, I gotta pull it up. It was actually about gargoyles.
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 Interesting.
Yes. Because why not? Hold on, I gotta find it. I closed everything out because we were talking about aliens.
Okay, well, you go ahead and look at that for a second.
I'm looking up
And
Paisley
so-
Swan.
What?
You're funny, Lois. Paisley Swan. I can laugh. That's funny. That's good.
It's Paisley Wild. Wilde. So anyhow, I thought this was interesting. Guy builds giants from wood and hides them in the wilderness for people to find. A Danish artist creates larger-than-life sculptures hidden around his hometown of Copenhagen. His sculptures require secret poems, his sculptures require secret poems and clues in order to locate them. He says each one is on its own treasure map or poem engraved into stone to steer people into unfamiliar paths where they'll discover them. Each is made of recycled wood consisting of roughly 600 pieces taken from pallets, fences, and even old wooden sheds. With the help of the local volunteers, he was able to complete a series of giant wooden structures. And there's a whole lot of pictures. These are interesting pictures. Unfortunately, as I said, there's a troll under the bridge. That's really cool. The story is, guy builds giants from wood and hides them in the forest. So look that up because there are some really cool ones that he's done up there. And what would you think if you walked into a forest and found, a wood golem standing there, just kind of out of the blue?
Well, I would be kind of startled. That is for darn sure.
Oh, he's named them too.
Well, yeah, it's artwork. You name your art pieces.
Good point. Yeah.
So.
The sleeping Lewis is one of them. Teddy Friendly. What's this one? That's Hilltop Shrine. The troll under the bridge is Oscar under the bridge. Interesting. And it shows him working on some of them.
They're pretty cool. I saw those pictures.
That's really, really cool. That I don't know if you've known this, but there was reports of people finding structures, and it was only in one spot, but some people finding structures like stairways and archways and things like that, just kind of randomly out in the forest, you know, and you know, so people were examining them, you know, checking them out, you know, doing different kind of, gosh, for some reason I can't think tonight. Experimenting with them, you know, trying to figure out what they were, and there's a lot of hypotheses of what they could be, and then I believe it came out that they were all staged. There was nothing paranormal about them, and it kind of broke my heart. I think Brent was following that, you know, and looking at it and just keeping an eye on it. So I think he knows about that too. But yeah, finding things like that would be interesting. So did you find your thing about gargoyles?
I did.
Oh,
Actually,
excellent.
it's a lovely little article with a bunch of little stories. So, all right. The first one is I felt a sudden compulsion to turn my head to my front right. In the beam from my flashlight in front of my grandmother's chicken coop, about 15 feet from me, was an entity about 7 feet tall. It had its back to me, and it turned halfway and looked over its shoulder at me. Turned enough that I could see he was definitely male, and he had a rather long, bulbous nose, large wings down to his mid-calf, skin and wings that looked leathery. He can't read and I can't talk, and was taupe or pinkish in color. No hair that I could see. He was also very thin, almost skeletal in appearance, with some sort of bony protrusions extending from his shoulders. I'll never forget it. It scared the crap out of me. I didn't notice any dead animals in the area afterwards, if there were any. So it was one.
Did he say what he thought they might have been, or did he just?
He wasn't sure. I was assuming it was. This was in Nevada in 2005. He just thought it was. Wasn't sure what it was. It turned up in True Ghost Tales, so they talked about it there. And then there's another story here. He was flying low, so I got a real good look at him. His wingspan was the size of a small car, and he looked to be 7.5 feet tall at least.
Wow.
The legs and head looked like that of a beast's, but the torso was a big man's with broad shoulders. I saw his wings flap once, but he mostly glided rather gracefully, but that's the only part about him I would describe as graceful. I screamed out, "Oh my God, look," within the first 2 seconds. And my boyfriend got a real good look at him, too. I think the demon creature, whatever, heard me because when that happened, he swooped down below the telephone pole and he disappeared as he passed the wiring. Keep in mind this was a well-lit area with no trees. We should have seen him pass the other side clearly. But as his body passed the electric wire, he vanished like he was going through a door or something. There's your portals. And
now, so he said approximately 7.5 feet tall. Did he say how big the wingspan could have been?
The size of a small car, and this was in Northern California in 2011.
Okay.
So
okay, so it wasn't contributed to a Mothman sighting. And
no, I think Mothman is Northern.
Oh yeah, it's Illinois, Chicago.
Yeah, no, this is California. Might have been high on something else, but
okay.
You never know.
Oh, God love you.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff out there. Let's see. This one is from California as well, the Central Valley area. So I looked up in the direction of the sound, and behind the slope of my neighbor's roof, I saw 2 large wings flap and then began to fold as if the creature had just landed there. As the wings were folding, I'd guess they were about 5 feet in length each. I noticed the house light from behind the creature trickled through the wings. They were opaque and leathery, not feathery like a hawk. It seemed to have heard me as I was passing. It became still, wings folded and rising over its circular head. It had no ears or horns or anything protruding from its head. It was just round. I couldn't see much more as the light behind the creature was behind the creature, So it was a black silhouette, but the leather on its wings were brown. I pulled out my phone and tried to use a flashlight setting to get a better view of it as I was passing, but the light didn't reach far enough, and the creature slowly started to descend behind the slope of the roof until I no longer saw it. I ran into my home and just laid in bed thinking about what the heck I had just seen. It was too big to be a bat, because I've seen bats around here and they're all small, and their head isn't shaped anything like what I had saw. It could have been a bird either, as I distinctly remember the wings being leathery with no feathers. So,
You know, but they're attributing all these to possibly gargoyles or something like that.
yes.
Because, you know, we've talked about on the show before, we've talked about, and you mentioned portals. We've talked about like pterodactyls and petrodons and things like that just appearing out of nowhere. You know, and people have suggested that, you know, they are flying. You don't see them very far.
I'm going to be right back.
They don't. That's the wrong one. They don't, you know, seem to land anywhere. They just seem to go from like one spot to another, and they would, you know, just appear out of nowhere, and then disappear into nowhere, and nobody would be able to track them. So interesting cryptid stories, you know, and that's what I think about when I hear, you know, stories like this. You know, just gargoyles. You know, that's something we haven't, specifically gargoyles isn't anything we've really talked about before on the show. So, you know, that's interesting. But, you know, like I was saying, you know, it's, everything okay?
Yeah, just the cat. Anubis
Yeah.
is a heathen. And I say that as someone who loves cats. I have a cat. Her name is Drama because she's a cat. But
That's
Anubis
funny.
takes the cake. Yep.
Brent loves that cat.
Actually, he's a pretty cool kitty. Kind of a nuisance.
A nuisance?
Yeah. Anubis is a nuisance. Yes, absolutely. So.
Interesting. So yeah, but you know, what I said, what I was talking about was, you know, petrodons or whatever the flying things are.
Pterodons, pterodactyls.
Yeah, those. You know, just appearing out of nowhere and disappearing into nowhere. And supposedly portals, possibly other dimensions, you know, because we talk about things like that as well. But, you know, is it possible that, you know, they come from inner Earth?
It's possible, I suppose. They could fly through a tunnel. I mean,
Well, I suppose they could do something.
if
do
Santa
have to.
Claus can come down a chimney, a pterodon can go through a cave. Yeah, see, Anubis came to visit.
Oh, there he is.
Thanks.
Mr. Anubis is in the studio. As long as he remains nice. Don't let him walk on things, though.
Why do you think I'm holding him?
Because he
It's
won't let
safer
you do
this way.
anything else.
Well,
Interesting.
as long as he's nice here. So yeah, are gargoyles real? Yeah, I think so. Could they be from a different dimension? Sure. They could be. I mean, the gargoyles, the inspiration to create a gargoyle as a protector of a building, that had to come from somewhere. I think so many of our myths and legends and even fictional histories could actually be or are based on some form of reality that maybe we don't understand or don't see now. So whether it's gargoyles or fae, fairies, Loch Ness Monster, Ogopogo, any of that, there's some basis in reality. Rather, it's they're coming from a interdimensional portal, or they're really real. I mean, even dragons. I think dragons are real. Now, whether or not they're as prolific in the world today as they were, say, a millennia ago, probably not, just because there's a lot more people now. But there are huge swaths of land and ocean that have not been explored or touched by man. There are, you know, even in the ocean, there's shipping lanes where people go all the time, but there are places off the beaten track of the ocean where anything could be, whether it's, you know, aliens or sea monsters or any of that stuff. And just like there's places in Siberia no one's been because no one wants to go there. But anything could hide there. I mean, there's some myths and some histories, of course, and legends that there's still mammoths located in Siberia. And just because we don't see them every day doesn't mean they aren't there. I mean, they just recently came across a cat or a fox or something that was considered
the cat lynx hybrid or something.
Yeah, something like that they thought has been dead and gone for a while, and suddenly it just showed up. Well, maybe it's just smart and doesn't want to be around people.
It was a fox cat hybrid or
yeah,
something like that.
it was kind of an odd looking critter. But yeah, so just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, hello, ghosts.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think they're pretty much there. Spirits, entities, all of that. Just because it's not visible with our naked eye doesn't mean that it doesn't really exist.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we talk about that. As a matter of fact, we mentioned that on Wednesday's show, Brent and I, Brent mentioned, that, we only see a very narrow amount of the light spectrum, So, what if there's just something that's lurking just outside our hearing? Because we only hear from like 20 hertz to, 20 to 20,000 hertz. So, you only see the light spectrum basically of a rainbow. You can't see anything beyond that. You can't see the ultraviolet. You can't see the infrared, and there's other, wavelengths that I'm sure that we can't even perceive.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but you know what? Now that I've got you here and you brought it up, you know what? I wanted to mention this real quick. You mentioned dragons. Now, there's also a hypothesis out there, a theory out there, that says that there really were no dinosaurs. What we know as dinosaurs are actually what the ancient people knew as dragons. But through whatever means, misunderstandings, misinterpretations of the information, that dragons got turned into dinosaurs, and dragons became the myth, and dinosaurs became the reality, as opposed to, supposedly dragons being the reality and dinosaurs being the myth or the misbelief or the misinformation. So what do you think of that?
I think it's possible. I think that a lot of our myths and legends are altered by the people who tell them and what they understand. Just like, for instance, tornadoes. What do tornadoes sound like?
I don't know. I've never heard one.
Well, everybody says they sound like a freight train.
Oh, okay.
So before freight trains were around, what did they sound like?
Oh, good question.
There's seriously, I think there's a lot that has happened before current era that has just by word of mouth has changed. Because the storytelling has changed, or that which we understand has changed,
right,
or it's been translated into a different language. And anybody who's ever spoken more than one language knows that the loss in translation can be astronomically huge.
Right.
Try Google Translate one time. Uh-huh. Yeah. And then translate it back. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So I watched a video on that today. Hilarious. But anyways, so there's, I think, just as history is written by the victor, I think a lot of our myths and legends are also told by those who had the right words or could illustrate correctly, and then, it wasn't written down, it was word of mouth. So maybe someone's sick one day and they mumble half of it, or they've had a little too much mead and they only give half the story. And that's what gets carried forward. There's so much that I think has been lost.
Right.
Just because it wasn't properly recorded. And so we're left with, the what ifs and the guesses. Do I think T-Rex could breathe fire? Sure, possibly. Not that he wasn't scary enough all by himself, but...
How could he be scary with those little tiny arms?
He wants to play the piano. You never know. Maybe that would compensate, ooh, fire here. It's possible. I think dinosaurs actually were separate, though, from dragons. I don't think they're the same.
So do you think? But you do believe that dinosaurs did exist and dragons did exist prior or in concert with? In concert with. Okay.
Or perhaps dragons are descended from dinosaurs. Who knows? But I don't think they were exclusive. You could only have one or the other. I think they both happened. And I think dinosaurs are probably still out there somewhere. I have a story about that too. Oh. And, I think dragons are probably more likely to have come through from a different realm or area. A different universe. Absolutely.
So what do you think of the idea of maybe them passing through like, say, a dimensional veil, something from a parallel Earth? Do you think that may have been possible, or that maybe that's where they went, or maybe there was some kind of a shift that created a dimensional veil between us and them, and they're still alive somewhere.
Yes. So, and ironically, part of the reason why I think yes is a book that Piers Anthony wrote. It's a series that I read 20 some odd years ago.
Did you say Xanth?
No, I did
Which one?
not.
Which one?
The Phase and Time series.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And in that one, every world or every universe was its own and it's incomplete. However, there were certain sections within the universe that were doorways to the universe that was next to it on each side. It was like little bitty pie wedges all the way across.
Right.
And each of the different universes were different because a choice B was made instead of choice A, or vice versa.
Right.
So there's like 1 degree of separation between each of these universes, and they're all parallel. And you could travel them from one to the next, and they're like 20 yards across or something in the little gates or whatever. And as you went through one, it was the same world, but it just, the further you got from your own, the more changes there were.
Right.
And it was a pie, so, or
Right.
it was a sphere, I guess, but because the people were walking, it was kind of flat. And so it's just 1 degree of separation for each of those choices. So yes, I think it is very possible that dragons still exist, but in a different plane or a different universe that is X number of degrees from the one we live in today.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's the whole question, do you go left or right at the fork in the road? If you go left, you go, to one dimension as opposed to going right to the other dimension. But with that idea, does that fracture your personality or your being if you make a different decision? And so, you go right, but part of you goes left into that other dimension to exist in that dimension as you there. Does that make sense?
I am not sure. Yes, it does make sense, but I don't know. I think the potentials or possibilities are limitless, and to say that we're splitting ourselves when we make a different decision means we're limited in our ability.
Or maybe making an echo of ourselves in that other dimension.
Yeah, echo works.
Okay.
I can see echo.
Interesting. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. 2.5 minutes before the break. Well, 2 minutes before the break. Did you want to read that dragon one real quick?
It's not a dragon. It's a dinosaur.
Oh, dinosaur one. Oh, that looks like it's going to be a little bit longer.
There's a lot of pictures. I can.
Well, let's save that until after the break.
Sure.
Because I know Julia keeps asking a question. She wants to know an answer, and sure, I'd love to hear the answer to that question too. So before we go to break, Julia keeps asking, Paisley, have you ever had a spell go terribly wrong?
Not terribly, no. So I'm a kitchen witch, and so I cook a lot. And in cooking and mixing my spices, there's a lot of magic that is intuitive. And so just like a recipe can go wrong, yes, magic can go wrong. And I don't have a book of shadows. I have a recipe box. Just so you guys know. Because to me, a spell is no different than a recipe. It really isn't. So has it ever gone horribly wrong? No. Have I had results that I didn't anticipate? Yes. Which is why in my show I talk about setting your intention prior to casting repeatedly. It's not just the words that you use and the ingredients that you have when you're casting a spell or during a working or even a ritual. It is your intention. If you intend to do someone harm, it doesn't matter how white your magic is going to do someone harm, and that's bad. So your intention, what is your goal, I think, is you need to have that very, very clear before you do a spell or casting. Now, do I feel that I have natural gifts, such as premonitions, hearing spirits, that kind of thing? I've had some really interesting deja vu moments where I've dreamt something and I've experienced it later. That's, for me, I've always used that as a marker, I guess.
Okay. Real quick, we're going to break, so keep that thought, and we'll go to break here. Don't do that. Anyhow, we'll be right back.
No
And
sound.
we're back.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm coming back too early from the break before the TFR break's done. That's the issue. But I don't want to, hot mic over TFR. I mean, it is a network show after all. Now, you were talking about setting intentions and things like that, and then you went on to something else. Oh,
Yeah, I had a dinosaur thing I talked about.
oh, that's right. We were talking about. See,
So, anyways, talking just Julia Blacktree's questions. Natural gifts, premonitions, hearing spirits. I don't know that I hear spirits. I can feel energy. And I'm working on energy control. Actually, I've had a couple of lessons in that direction.
energy control.
Yeah, energy aura.
Okay. Because I remember your aura show from the
Yeah.
other day. Okay.
Yep. So understanding auras and the energy within, and so that's been interesting, very much so, and I want to learn more. So yeah, and then the dinosaur thing. It's a long one. Do you want me to read the whole thing? I can.
Well, we got time. Sure.
Yeah, it's the Partridge River monster.
Partridge River. Where's Partridge River? I'm supposed to tell us.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So, so all over the world there comes to us reports of what can only be described as living dinosaurs of some sort. The tropical regions of our planet are especially prone to this, such as the wilds of Africa or the far reaches of the Amazon rainforest. Yet there have been very strange alleged encounters recorded from other areas that seem to be the furthest thing from anyone's mind when envisioning dinosaurs still roaming the earth. One such account must surely have been some sort of gigantic T-Rex-like thing roaming the badlands of the freezing far north of Canada, and it has a historical case that still generates intrigue to this day. On April 15, 1908, a very curious account from a Georges Dupay appeared in the French journal Je sais tout.
Starting
Sorry.
to sound like me.
I know, right? I am not drinking out of the hooch bottle, just so you know.
Speaking of.
As he told of a harrowing encounter supposedly experienced by two hunters out in the frigid, remote wilderness of the Yukon Territory in Canada, right up against the border with Alaska. According to the report, San Francisco banker James Lewis Butler and a local gold miner named Tom Leemore had been out hunting moose in the area of Yukon's Clear Creek. It had been shaping up to be a good hunt, actually, as they had managed to get on the trail of three moose who were drawing closer to their kill when something very bizarre supposedly happened. As the two men hunkered down to observe the animals, the very large moose suddenly became very frightened by something unseen off in the trees. One of the animals let out a bellow of warning, and the three moose all bolted off in a panic as the two startled hunters looked on, wondering what could possibly have been that frightened these intimidating animals so badly. Yeah, if you've ever seen a moose,
They're huge.
they will take on a train. It takes something pretty scary to scare a moose. Anyways, however, they weren't about to give up their hunt, so they tracked the moose through the wilderness. But then they came across quite an unexpected sight. There, meandering off through a portion of marshland, were immense tracks, neither of them had ever seen before, measuring a mind-boggling 2.5 feet across and 5 feet in length, as well as what looked to be an impression from a tail dragging behind whatever it was, which had dredged a gouge measuring 2 feet across in the mud. They tried to follow the tracks, but they soon vanished into a rocky area that led into the perilous gorge of the place called Partridge Creek, and the search was called off. Butler and Leemore decided to go get help, making their way to a remote outpost called Armstrong Creek, and there they found it with the explorer and writer of the article, Georges Dupay, as well as a French-Canadian missionary named Father Pierre Lavignon, and 5 local native guides to tag along. Their foolhardy, geez, I can't talk, expedition found them camped out on a ridge overlooking the area where the massive monster had disappeared, but it would soon make an appearance. It was here on that lonely ridge where the group of men would observe an outlandish beast said to measure nearly 50 feet long, with an estimated weight of 40 tons, and the whole of it covered in coarse black hair or bristles reminiscent of those of a wild boar. The creature is described as being bipedal and possessing a formidable mouth full of teeth and a single imposing horn upon its snout. Rather than do the sensible thing and get out of there, the men supposedly watched the gigantic beast roam about and climb about the rocky gorge for a full 10 minutes, and Lavignon became convinced that what they were seeing was an extinct dinosaur similar to the T-Rex called Ceratosaurus. Amazingly, the ferocious monster at no point seemed to realize it was being watched, and it stalked off into the cold wilderness to leave them breathless and in a state of shock, with especially the native guides reeling in terror. The terrified men abandoned their search for the monster and instead went back to Armstrong Creek and later Dawson City to try to get more men and arms, but nobody believed them and they were unsuccessful. Indeed, according to Dupay, they were remorselessly mocked upon getting back to civilization, you think, and never made another attempt to figure out what they had seen, leaving it all lost to history. Interestingly, Lavignon would later claim to have seen the creature one more time in 1907 in the same area, this time with a dead caribou held tightly in his jaws as it ran along a frozen river. The account of the Partridge River monster has gone on to become a lesser known but also much discussed little corner of cryptozoology, and one of those tantalizing cases that has been sort of lost to history, which is infuriating in its inability to be confirmed one way or another. Of course, there are many reasons to be suspicious of the whole thing, not the least of which is the creature in question is known solely from these two reports from over a century ago. Then there is the fact that the frigid, unforgiving terrain of modern Yukon, can't talk, does seem to not be particularly welcoming to an animal such as this. The report of the presence of a tail in the muck is also somewhat eyebrow-raising, as such dinosaurs were not known to just drag their tails along, but would rather have kept them up above the ground, suggesting an ignorance of the physiology of dinosaurs. So is this just a hoax? Did any of it happen? Or is there something very big and strange lurking about in these cold northern lands away from our gaze? So
40 tons, though. You've got to think that they've got some kind of, blubber layer, to keep them warm in that. So you would imagine that, that there possibly could be, because they had to adapt or they had to die it off. And so that was up in the Yukon, is that right?
Yep. Yukon.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of miles in the Yukon where people just don't go.
Yep, absolutely. With good reason, too, because it's cold enough here. So, but they said how big was it? It was a lesser known style T-Rex.
Yeah, so hold on, I closed the tab, of course. Where did it say? The feet were 2.5 feet across and 5 feet in length.
Wow.
The 4 footprints. Sriracha, seriously?
Oh,
Yeah. Use sriracha on your T-Rex. Ceratosaurus. So 40 tons and 50 feet long.
50 feet long. That's huge.
Make some good steaks.
Probably.
Yeah.
The neck would be particularly good, I'd imagine.
Probably the haunch. Bacon.
See why I like hanging out with her? Oh, let's just talk about Dino Barbecue. That's
there you
awesome.
Go. Everybody's welcome. Come join us.
Goodness.
We'll dance around the fire and roast dinosaur ribs.
And drink mead.
There you go. Sounds like a party.
Yeah,
Let's
no
go.
doubt. So, interesting. A lot of people, King Sweet in TFR says that, dragons and dinosaurs are the same, or were known as the same thing, or thought to be the same thing prior to the 1880s. And he's right, man. The word dinosaur wasn't even invented until then. That was, I believe that was a, Standard Oil. Who owned Standard Oil? Founded Standard Oil. Was it Rockefeller? I think it was. But it's been attributed to the word dinosaur being coined to sell gas. Because they call them fossil fuels. But they're not really fossil fuels because it's not from dinosaurs. But it was a word invented to explain where it came from, or at least become the sales pitch. So interesting. If anybody knows anything, we've talked about this before. Oil is kind of like the grease of the earth. It's lifeblood. It can renew itself, but it would take a long time. And imagine how much we've pumped out of the ground. But anyhow, I digress. But great. Now they're talking about Bronto burgers.
Hey, you know what? Yes, I'm sure that Don's basement has at least one freezer big enough for Bronto
I think my five family freezer might hold
Five
it.
family freezer.
Five family freezer, yeah. It
Say
did.
that 10 times real
Five
fast.
family freezer, five family freezer, five family freezer, five family
So
freezer.
King Sweet, I just saw you on TFR chat, and so there's some thought that because in the previous centuries that if an animal was breathing first thing in the morning, the steam that comes out of their mouth, and it's kind of cool. Hi, Brent. So it would look like smoke to those who are uneducated. So it's possible that, I suppose, dinosaurs that lived and were breathing out or just exhaling and normal, it looked like steam coming out of their mouth. So they thought it was, smoke, because why not? So you never know. It could be. But yeah, I do think mankind and dinosaurs both live together. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they found oh my gosh, I'm such a sight typer. Oh my god.
Yeah, this is why you need light sprint. Don can't
I
see
can't see
his
the keyboard.
fingers.
Well, and then because I'm a sight typer, this is Brent has well loved this keyboard, so there's no letters on the keys. So I was just typing to Brent in YouTube, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, Brent, no, that's what the hell is that?" So anyhow, so I was gonna say it's gonna look like he's talking to himself.
Taters
So
precious.
taters, you know, I lost my line of thought there. That's
You
not
had one?
surprising.
So
It's a crooked one.
I'd love to eat some dinosaur. I'm starving. I had pizza for dinner and a salad. I had a big salad, but suddenly I want barbecue.
Suddenly salad.
No, barbecue.
A barbecue. Okay,
Ribs.
fine. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sadly, I would have to agree, Randall. People just don't watch Flintstones anymore. All the good cartoons just don't seem to be around, and the cartoons today, as Minnie Paisley watches sometimes, yeah, they're weird. Yeah, I have to edit some of those, and we block things all the time. Because some of those are not fit for a 5-year-old. That is doggone
yeah,
true.
I'm worried about that kind of stuff. Kids growing up and watching all the crap that's on TV. Do you know that they make a candy? It's a marshmallow candy called unicorn poop, and it's rainbow colored marshmallows, and they call it unicorn poop. Yeah, I don't. Oh, and then there's like slime. It's called poo, and it's brown slime.
No.
Yeah.
I have had children and grandchildren, and no.
You've had grandchildren?
I have grandchildren, yes. I have 2.
That's not what you said, though. You said you've had grandchildren.
Yes, at my house.
Oh, had them at your house. Gotcha. Weirdo.
Hey, I wasn't the one thinking about long pork right there, barbecue man.
No, that's true. That's true. Oh, gosh. Hi, Anubis. Apparently he's not getting the loving that he needs. Oh, well. Hey, I haven't broke into a song yet tonight.
You've done very, very good avoiding that.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you're here.
Why?
Because I probably would have rambled instead of having, at least somebody to talk to. And I've mentioned several times that, I don't think I could do my own show. I don't know how Brent does the bedtime stories, and I don't know how he does Friday by himself, so yeah, he does great. I don't know how he does it. I wouldn't be able to do it.
1 hour's not too bad. I don't know if I could do 2 on my own, because the spaces between is a 1-hour show.
Right.
And I know that I need 9 to 12 pages of material if I'm typing everything out.
On your teleprompter?
On my teleprompter, yes.
Lucky's probably going to get on me about fretting you out on that one again, but you know what?
There's nothing wrong with the teleprompter. Otherwise, I would lose my thought like you.
Huh?
So,
no, I understand.
Yes, the calling board does help, Brent. I would have to agree, even though I don't seem to have very many callers. My show's on at 11 p.m. Pacific time, so when we get done here, I get to go home and eat something that's not barbecued dinosaur ribs and maybe ice cream.
Oh.
And then my show's on at 11. It's only an hour. So there's still, it's the middle of the night pretty much anywhere that
Yeah.
you live.
Yeah,
So
no
I
doubt.
don't get too many callers, and the folks that listen, yes, Black Tree, I know you call in occasionally. So the folks that listen are true night owls. Or night owls. So yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's a fun show, and mostly I do it just to kind of document my own journey.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Because as we learn anything new, I know that Brent's done this with his own shows. When he first started those first couple episodes, were not as polished as they are now.
Well, yeah. Well, of course.
So it just as my path is, as it evolves and I learn more about it, what I talk about on my show is going to change. So I think it's going to be fun. No, Anubis, you cannot eat my hand. Urgh. Anybody want a cat?
We'll just leave him behind when we leave the studio tonight.
Yes.
Jess, hi Jess, how are you? Unfortunately, we're having an issue with the. Let me admit it. I'm having an issue with the call board for whatever reason. So anyhow, Brent did call in, and everybody heard him, but we didn't. So I don't know why. Yeah, that's what happens when I take the helm of the SS Portal. But no, that's really cool. So you have a podcast too, don't you?
Yep.
And a YouTube page and all that?
Yep. So if you're listening in on YouTube and there's to the right of my name, if I type something out, here, I'll say hello. Hello.
Oh, go to channel. She's gonna say go to channel.
There's click on the three little dots and you can choose to go to the channel and check me out. So yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So check that out. Oh, wait a minute.
Yep. And Black Tree keeps dropping links, which is awesome.
Yes, sir.
So yeah.
Oh, okay.
D, I would not watch the Teletubbies even after Hooch. I'm sorry.
Hey,
Can't
hold on a sec.
Yes,
Let's see if
yes.
this will work. Hey, Brent, how's that? Go ahead and talk. See what happens.
I just wanted to say hello to everybody, and I love you guys, and thank you and Paisley for taking over the reins of the show. You guys are doing great. You really are. I'm sitting here listening to you. You guys are doing marvelous, and quit beating yourself up. You're doing fantastic with it.
All righty, cool. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
yeah,
Brent.
I don't know what's going on. You'll have to check out your board and see what I messed up when you get home. So
He touched it, just to warn you.
Give me a call tomorrow, and we'll go over it. We'll figure it out.
yeah, absolutely, and we can definitely do that. So cool.
All right, brother. Well, good job. You guys are doing great, and thank you so much. I'm just thrilled you're there doing it, and I love all the rest of you. You guys have a great night, and I'll be watching.
There you go. All right, thanks, bud. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, the little black button.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jessica.
There's quite a few little black buttons on this thing.
There are actually. The board I have in my studio is not quite as grown up as Brent's board because he's got a lot more buttons to push.
He's got a big boy board. Oh well. So wow, we're coming to the end of the show. And we got about 7 minutes left. That's awesome.
Yep.
Of course,
So just real quick, make sure Nikki Colombo is on after this. So hi, Nikki, and she's talking New Age, Ascension, and Disclosure Hack. She's got a lot going on. That's here in 10 minutes.
And
Holy
that's
cow.
that. Of course, is she on right after our show?
On TFR. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't pay too much attention.
That's because you're Dawn. I don't know.
Huh? Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do see Nikki in the
TFR chat.
TFR chat there. Hi, Nikki. How are you? Usually Brent's here, but he had things to take care of, so I'm stealing the show. Excellent. So, of course, check out. We don't talk about a whole lot, but there are different ways to. Okay, that's not true. We try to talk about it all the time.
Talk about everything.
But I mean, I'm specifically meaning the Teespring, this Teespring store where you can get all your paranormal gear. He pirated Brent's board. Yeah, I probably did something. I put something down real bad. So the Teespring store, it's teespring.com /stores /paranormal-portal. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. We've got the Facebook there and Twitter. Now, the Twitter is at Paranormal Portal, Portl, no A. Yes, thank you, Black Truth, for dropping that link in there. You've got a Etsy store. What do you have?
Yep, I have an Etsy store. It's Monarch Mountain Studios. So it's MONARCHMTN Studios, STUDIOS. But yeah. And yeah, it's I make runes, so there's some bone runes in there. They're not actually bone, they're clay, but they look very lifelike. And then I've got a bunch of coffee mugs with runes and rune meanings, and I'm adding stuff all the time. So yeah, it's fun. Check it out. It supports my show, and someday when I'm slightly older and maybe richer, I will quit my day job and do this full time because it's so much more fun.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, being able to do that at full time.
Yeah, not have to go to work, clock in.
Rent my talents out as a producer instead of
you could do voiceovers. I can see that happening.
No, I still don't. I don't care what anybody says. I still don't like my voice.
Nobody likes their own voice. I have been on the phone and radio and stuff for a lot longer than we're going to discuss. But yeah, it takes a little bit to get used to hearing yourself. But yeah, just do it.
Well, I know the difference is the spoken voice and the voice you hear in your head, because you have all the the sinuses that resonate and all, and all that. So you hear more of your head than you do anything else. There is a way to.
You're saying you're listening to the voices in your head now?
Did she just ask that? Really? I thought you knew who I was.
They're leading you astray.
Oh no, that's funny. That's funny. Yes, of course I listen to the voices in my head, but yeah, and I listen to myself on the podcast and things like that. All right, Paul.
Hashtag bring back Brent.
He'll be back later. He'll be back Sunday night, I'm sure, possibly. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, I think he's planning on being back Sunday night in time for bedtime stories.
Yeah, it's going to be a long day for him, though.
You know what? He is a glutton for punishment. I don't know how he does the show every day. Mm-hmm. That is a superpower that I don't have just don't allude to ever.
I don't have it. Mm-mm. So anyhow, but if I had Paisley, what would you've known me for a while? Mm-hmm. What do you think if I had a show? What do you think I would talk about, or what do you think would be good for me to talk about?
Your beard.
Oh, Lewis says let Paisley do a bedtime story.
Thanks,
so
Lewis.
She can talk like this. Really kind of half sexy into the microphone.
It just doesn't work with the beard, dear.
No,
Sorry.
It's not working. No, it's not working. I'd be learning like arg.
Arg.
Oh well. Anyhow.
I don't know. I really don't know. I know you like the history of so probably something in that general direction. Just because you do seem very interested in it, and you talk about it often, and you seem to find resources about that kind of thing just very, very quickly. So yeah, maybe something more with, I mean, you are Aether Archives.
Well, that's true.
Could become like the library at Alexandria and get some real archival material in there.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow, that'd be kind of cool. Could you imagine me being the authority in archiving?
Sure, why not? It could happen.
That's wild. Oh, Lewis says you can do ASMR.
ASMR? I don't know what that is.
Look it up. It's I don't remember what it stands for, but it's things to help people sleep and meditate and center, things like that.
So, I've thought about adding more videos onto my YouTube as far as, like guided meditation type things, just by adding a 15-minute or something. Yeah. So it's a thought. I don't know. I do occasionally Elaine, yes. There are always a person attached to the voices I hear, it seems like. Unless I'm talking to myself, then we're all good. We know what we are talking about because we are getting expert advice at that point.
Brent says, just an FYI, there will be a Sunday,
I'm out of focus.
That's okay. A Sunday bedtime. He's pre-recorded it and set it up for a premiere on Sunday at 7. So there you go. Dawn the Librarian.
Dawn the Librarian.
You know
Why
what?
not?
Our show is over. We've got a little less than a few seconds.
Oh, there you go. It is. It was a fast 2 hours.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yes, thanks.
And thanks for putting up with me. I will be here again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I will try to bring her with me for the information. So we've got to go, and we will talk to you later. Thank you for joining us.
Catch Nikki shortly.
Oh, there you go. Good night,
See you
everyone.
later.